on none other than Jake, who runs Saint TV, the fan channel for the St Kilda Football Club. Jake, welcome, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for the invite. Good to be on it.
No problem, mate. No problem. This is good. When I picture doing Blue Abroad, I always pictured of having the weekly sort of preview with the opposition. I think it's going to bring a different dynamic. So very, very honoured, very excited to have you on the show, and hopefully we can get some good engagement in the comments with the St Kilda fans and the Carlton fans. It's a little bit interesting because we don't know where it's going to go. We don't know how it's going to be, but we'll find out pretty soon.
Yeah, no, it's going to be an interesting game, I think. Your form's been pretty good the last, say, 6 or 7 weeks with Teague coming in and winning 5 of the 9 games. And obviously us with, the whole situation with Richo and then Ratton coming in, an old coach of yours as well. So that adds a bit of spice to it. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens on Saturday for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll get to the Carlton perspective in a moment. But tell me a little bit about what is happening in the world of St Kilda. How do you view this matchup, and how do you view Carlton from the outside looking in?
St Kilda, from my perspective, it's a typical St Kilda season, really. It's all over the place. There's expectations, there's the highs, there's the lows, but the big part's been a lot of the injuries to some key players that we've started getting back. Which is, I guess, something that you probably didn't want, is the likes of Hanbury and Stephen having a good game under their belt, Carlisle coming back, Loney coming back from injury, players like Marshall dodging a big injury last week, and it's going to be interesting against Cruiser this week, I believe. So from my perspective, I'm looking forward to this. I think this will be a test for us, to be honest. I think we got over the line against Freo. We've been pretty good against the Dogs in Melbourne, and not too bad against Adelaide recently, but I actually think this is going to be the real test to see where we're at, because Carlton seem to be playing with a lot of confidence, and that even though you lost the last 2 from an outsider watching it, like, you guys really did test 2 of the top 3 or 4 teams in the league in West Coast and Richmond. So there's a lot to worry about when I look at Carlton. Just your midfield is it just runs all day. Your forward line's becoming more dangerous now with the likes of Kerner, Mackay, McGovern as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how we match up there. And, our ins for this week is Nathan Brown. So I think you forced that because of your tall forward line. So that already says that we're taking you really seriously. So, yeah, pretty nervous going into this.
Yeah, and obviously for us, spoke about the David Teague factor. We've just signed him today, which was fantastic for us.
Yeah.
And I mean, the one thing that we know is the players were playing for him because they enjoy him. It could be an argument to be made that, from your side, you've obviously got Brett Ratton as your caretaker coach, who's a favourite son of the Carlton Football Club. Tell me a little bit about your opinion of Rats. Like, do you love him at the Saints? Is he someone you definitely want to have as the head coach?
A lot of people, even before he was head coach, with all the rumours of Richo, wanted him to be head coach, and I was pretty skeptical then. I'm like, you've got to give him a chance, just because, his record, is very good for an assistant coach, going to having a lot of success at Hawthorn under one of the best coaches ever in the AFL in Clarko. And then you look at his record at Carlton, and everyone kind of, some people say that, he got the sack, he wasn't very good. I don't know what your opinion is of him, but I look at his record, and I think he made finals twice, I believe.
I wanted him to be head coach,
What was that?
Sorry, go again.
He made finals twice. His record was more wins than losses, and that's something that only could have been desired at St Kilda with Richo. His record is much better than what Richo's was. So the way he's playing now, the way he's coaching, the way the players are reacting to him, it's similar to Teague, I reckon, and they seem to be loving their football again, and it's not a job, it's a bit of fun. So it's amazing how far that goes when players are just playing with fun. And that's something we didn't have for the first 15 weeks. So I'm all for him. I don't see anyone else interviewing that I would really want. Robert Harvey being one. It's always a risk going with a favourite son. Buckley almost backfired. You look at Lepage for Brisbane. There's a bunch of them. Hurd for Essendon. You can go through a big list there. I don't see anyone else really taking it away from him, especially if we can get over the line against you and then play well against Sydney in the last game of the year. I think it's his, honestly, to lose. So, pretty happy with him. And I know that a lot of people wanted his services after he left Hawthorn last year. So, it's a big coup for us.
Thing with Rats, because obviously he's a premiership player. He won the best and fairest in a premiership year for us. And, hindsight's a wonderful thing. So looking back, we as supporters, generally feel like, we went after Mick Malthouse. We thought we were ready to go for that in 2013. So we sort of cut the cord with Rats, and we look back now and wish things were a little different, just the way that we treated a former champion. Look, for me, I just hope he gets a job somewhere. He's a great Carlton man. Not this week, though. Obviously, we want to get the chocolates, and we don't want to have a point to David Teague. And obviously, Cripps plays his 100th, and we don't want to come in and have a lot this week. But the thing is, you guys, I don't know if you feel it, but I certainly feel it. There's something about St Kilda that you guys just have it over us.
We do. That's one thing I was thinking about this preview during the day. I was like, I'm worried about Carlton, but then I can't remember the last time we went into a game and you guys absolutely spanked us. I reckon it would have been Ross Lyon days, it would have been maybe 3 or 4 years ago, early Richo days. I remember, I think it was at Etihad, and you beat us by maybe 30 or 40 points pretty comfortably. But that was at our worst. That's when we were struggling. Yeah. Last year, we obviously beat you pretty comfortably. But, you're a different team now. So I don't know. I'm not going to try and look too far back on those records.
Yeah. No, it tracks back to the, like you said, the Ross Lyon, Brendan Goddard days. I think we beat you in 2010 or 2011. Judd kicked that goal and had that celebration. That's the one time I remember winning against you guys. Was that Brett Ratton those days? I believe it was.
Was Brett Ratton? I was going to say he would be the last coach to win against us, but it would have been Bolton. Malthouse, maybe. So, I don't feel like that anymore. There's a lot of records being broken this year. Brisbane, we had a big streak over Brisbane for so long. They came out and spanked us. Melbourne, we had, I think, 12 years up until last year, and they beat us. So it's just records. So I'm sure Carlton won't even be thinking about it. We won't be. I'm just interested to see how Carlton react to this, knowing that Teague is their coach now, because it's a different thing playing for a guy and hoping he becomes the senior coach. But now that he is the coach, sometimes you can, the dial gets pushed back a little bit and they can relax and be like, okay, he's got his job. Are they going to fight for it? Was Ratton, he doesn't have it yet, and the players know that. So I feel like, does that create more hunger for us than you? And it depends on how the players react, but I'm sure they'll come out and play the same way. But it's interesting.
Absolutely. And I think just moving into the actual game, I think there are certain players that you guys have that play well against us. There are certain matchups that I've had a look at that I'm a little bit mindful of. So I'll bring them up with you and get your thoughts. But anybody who's watching, whether you're a Carlton fan or a St Kilda fan, if you have any questions for Jake, please put them in the comments below and we'll get to them. I think the Rohan Marshall matchup is fascinating. Now, we all love Matty Cruiser. We know that he's a warrior. Rohan Marshall is one of the more underrated ruckmen in the competition. And for some, I don't know what it is, because he's playing for a Victorian-based team, so there's no interstate bias or anything like that. Where's this guy come from? And then how did he get so good so quick?
Look, he was originally brought in as the next hope after Rewalt retired, another forward target. We've had the likes of Bruce, who's been a bit hit and miss, but he's hitting some form now. Membry, who's kind of that, he plays tall, but he's not that gun full forward. He's not 6'6" sort of guy. And then obviously Paddy McCartan as well, number 1 pick. It doesn't look like it's going to turn out very well for Paddy. He may well retire at the end of the season. So having Marshall there was kind of that next forward target for us. And we played him there. I think it was his first or second game against you guys last year, from memory. And he kicked a good goal. That was his highest super coach ranking at that point of his career. I mean, he surpassed that about 10 times this season. But he's always had that agility to him. He's always played like a big mid, and that's something that I haven't seen in many ruckmen this year, and especially from ruckmen that we've had. You know, you look at the likes of, we've had Billy Longer, not mobile at all, doesn't have an engine, can't go forward and kick goals, can't go back and take, you know, important marks in defence. Then you've got Hickey, who had that mobility, but he wasn't consistent enough, didn't have the engine, and then we trade him. So the next, and Louis Pearce, who just can't get a game at the moment. So, you know, trialling Rowan in the ruck, I think was a no-brainer for us. A lot of people were a bit worried at the start, you know, great, we're trying to turn a forward into a ruck. But he looks like he can do it all, man. Like, to me, he's going to be one of the, if not the best, top 3, top 5 in the next 2 to 3 seasons, ruckman in the league. So
yep.
That's one matchup that I can finally, as a Saints fan, go into a game and think, if it's not Gawn or Grundy, I think Marshall's got it, you know, and that's pretty important for us.
Definitely. Kudos to him and kudos to you guys. I think the other guy as well, Jack Stephen, who's just at the right time to be sort of back into your lineup. He loves playing against Carlton.
He saw Carlton on the fixture. He's like, nah, I need a warm-up game the week before, and I want to be primed for this. And
yeah,
he does have big games against a lot of teams. He's been, you know, 4-time best and fairest. He's a great player for us, and I hope he's at the Saints next year, but not too sure at the moment. But it might be interesting. It might be a different look for him. He played pretty much 90% forward last week, and he kicked 3. Still had 22 possessions, 7 tackles, 6 marks. So if a small forward does that for any team, you know, he might sneak, you know, you get an All-Australian sort of small forward. So I think we're going to see more of that on Saturday. He will play more forward than mid. Hanbury comes in, he can play mid. So we don't need Stephen rotating there as much, especially with, you know, Billings getting more mid-time, Dunstan in there, Steele in there, Gresham when he's not injured is in there more. So takes the weight off those sort of guys. Ross as well. Hunter Clark's coming on big time. I'm curious who would match up on Stephen if he plays forward pocket. Who can go on him that's quick enough, mobile enough, experienced enough? Because that's a sort of matchup that I can see us getting, you know, isolating in the goal square. Because if the ball comes to the ground, he's very nimble, you know.
Yeah.
Could be dangerous.
So for us, Lockie Plowman has traditionally taken the small forward that comes in. Now that's going to be interesting because this week we know that Liam Jones is out. He's got a fracture in his voice box, so he's out for the season, which is a bit unfortunate because he's had a horror week the week before his mother passed away, and obviously, you know, he's dealing with that. So he's come out of the side, and Matt Kennedy's come in. So what we're actually going to be doing is, I'm pretty sure we're going to be putting Levi Casbolt, Lockie Plowman, I should say, as that second tall defender. So he'll take a Membry and Wiedering will take a Bruce. And then it's going to be someone like either a Nick Newman or a Dale Thomas who takes that small forward. Now, that's dangerous for us because we know that, like you said, Jack Stephen's really nimble. He's a ball winner, and I think if you guys can get some ascendancy in the middle of the ground, I think it's got the ability to really open up for you guys. So the short answer is, I'm not confident. I don't know who the matchup is for someone like a Jack Stephen. I mean, you still got other smalls. You got Billings. You got Gresham. Yep. These are guys that traditionally, those are the prototype of players that do well against us. So
Loney back as well.
We're a bit taller. We back our height in. We've got obviously, we've got Mitch McGovern, Harry Mackay, Levi Casbolt, and then in defence we've got a pretty tall defence when we're at full strength, and that's been the thing that we've been sort of tossing with throughout the season. You know, are we too tall? Are we too small? So look, it's going to be interesting.
Are you too tall?
Sorry?
Are you too tall against us? I know for us, we're pretty well stocked in the height department, but our game plan is running and handballing and not playing tall. If anything, our talls get the ball to ground more than they mark it. You know, Bruce, he does mark, and he's, I think, top 3 for contested marks in the league. But when it gets to ground, he's very good there as well. So is Membry, you know. So they're different types of talls. They're not your standard. If the ball hits the ground, they won't chase. But I'm just curious if, you know, this week in going into this, you're too tall, or you think you're pretty happy with what your team's fielded?
I don't think we're too tall. I think we're okay because obviously I think we were too tall last week. And then obviously we lose a tall in Jones and we bring in a midfielder in Kennedy. I've also just noted here you've got another massive out, mate. Darcy Lang's out for Carlton. That's a big out for you guys.
Oh, there you go. What the hell?
Look, Darcy Lang, for some context for you, we've got him across from Geelong.
Yeah.
He just, for whatever reason, it just hasn't really worked out. We feel, I think as a general whole, and I am speaking on behalf of the Carlton supporters, so I could be wrong in this, but I genuinely feel that that'll be the last game Darcy plays for the club. He didn't have a good one last week at all. But I do have a question here from a Carlton supporter, and he's not taking the piss.
I saw that. What's it like barracking for a shit team?
No, I wanted to bring it up because obviously you had the period in 2010. You guys were like the best team in the competition with Geelong, and you had all those blockbusters. When you look back as a fan on that period, I know frustration and all of that. But what do you feel? What do you talk about? What's the within the St Kilda fans?
When I think of, like, people forget, 09 and 10, we were unbelievable. I don't know how, if anything, we were good in 2010, but we only finished third or fourth, I think, that year. 09, we won the first 19. You know what I mean? Like, we lost 3 games for the entire year, and I think by a combined total of less than 18 points in 3 games. You wouldn't dream of a season like that now, But I think, 04 we made a prelim and lost by a goal. 05 we made a prelim and got overrun by Sydney. 08 we had made a prelim and got hammered by the Hawks. 9 grand final loss. 10 2 grand finals, a draw, bad bounce. So when I look back, I look back on some pretty good memories of some incredible games. Like the St Kilda Geelong game in 09. I don't know if you guys agree, being Carlton fans, but to me, if I was a neutral and I didn't follow either team, I'd still realise that's one of the best games you'll ever see. Biggest crowd.
St Kilda Geelong game?
Yeah, in 09.
Guarding the mark with the tongue tag.
Guarding the mark with a minute to go, knocking out, who was it, Harry Taylor or someone, But I look back and I think, God, we were a bit unlucky. Some teams get lucky. The Bulldogs had the perfect final series. Richmond, turned it around overnight. And then there's the annoyance of the sustained success of the Geelongs, the West Coast, the Collingwoods. Can they just piss off and let the smaller guys come in, And now it's annoying Brisbane are like rocketing from, 4 wins last year to probably a home final double chance, and you kind of like, surely it's going to turn around at some point. But, I love it. It's made me... I've got thick skin now, so I went to school in Geelong, so I had to cop in that period where the two of us were the best teams. So you could imagine going to a school in Geelong, losing that 09 grand final and having to go back the next week. It was tough, but no, I love it. I've always liked an underdog. I could never see myself going for a big Collingwood, Carlton, Richmond sort of team. I've always loved the small story, so... I don't know. It's a weird thing. I'm an Arsenal fan as well, so I'm used to this recent disappointment of not making top 4 and all that stuff. So it's I don't think about it too much, but there's Nick Rewaltz, Lenny Hayes, Gehrig's out there, that Hamill from Carlton as well. Some good players there. Good memories. More good memories than bad for sure.
Yeah. Question here from Blake. Who is going to line up on McGovern and who's going to line up on Harry Mackay?
Yeah, they're both mobile. That's the thing. When I look at it, we've got 3 options there. We've got Carlisle, we've got Nathan Brown, who's come in, and we've got someone that not many people talk about, but he took a big mark last week and he's turning it on, is Josh Battle. A forward, one of the best forwards in the draft a couple of seasons ago, and now we've turned him into a centre-half back, and he's been very good. Mackay, I think that would be a Carlisle sort of matchup, but just because I think he's got pace on Brown. If the ball hits the ground, he's got that pace. His aerobic capacities, you look at someone like the King brothers, it's that sort of level where they're tall, but they're fast and mobile, so they're dangerous when the ball hits the ground, whereas I think a Brown can kind of battle with McGovern one-on-one. McGovern's, pretty mobile, but he's not going to get away from Brown when the ball hits the ground, so I feel like those 2 matchups could work. And then I don't know a battle could rotate between them depending on how the game goes. And if you rest anyone forward as well, he'll take that. But I think Brown, McGovern, and I would go Carlisle, Mackay. But I'm not confident on Carlisle taking Mackay. I think that's risky because Carlisle's
you'd be you may or may not be aware of this, but for whatever reason, Harry Mackay has come under scrutiny from the Carlton supporters. I think, look, lately he hasn't been kicking the bags of goals, but what he has been doing is finding other ways to impact. So what we've discovered with him last week was a bad example because it was raining. It was a shocking day for forward. So he didn't have a good game last week. The week before he had 18 touches and had 11 marks. So he's playing up the ground. I think what I've realised is I want Harry to be our centre half forward, and I want Charlie to be our stay-at-home full forward. I think the dynamic. So I would guess, and the way it's named, Harry playing centre half forward. I would love to see him play centre half forward and Mitch McGovern stay at home. He's a little bit more fitter and probably less mobile than Harry at this stage because he's come off a bit of a disciplinary thing in terms of his fitness. So that's how I see the matchup. And I do agree. I would have thought Carlisle goes to Harry. And make no mistake, Carlisle is one of your better players. I'm not sure where he's been this year in terms of your best and fairest, but Harry's going to have his work cut out for him.
Definitely. But I do think, though, when I think about this game and the matchups either end, so our forwards against your backs and your forwards against our backs, I think our forwards, I don't know if you'll disagree on this, but I think our forwards have the better of your backs and your forwards have the better of our backs, which means that midfield battle that we haven't talked about yet is the match winner there. Whoever gets the ball into the 50 clean or in the air when the other team doesn't have time to get back and congest it, that's who's going to win the game. And our midfield has less stars than, say, Carlton. You've got Walsh, who's one of the best first-year players I've ever seen. He literally plays like he's got 250 games under his belt already. It's very jealous watching someone like him run around in a Carlton shirt when we're struggling to get the guys like Hannah and Stephen onto the field. But our midfield is a tough one. It works hard, and we've battled a lot of teams this year that have supposedly got the better midfields, and we've worked harder. A good example is Melbourne's midfield. We beat them easily when we played them, like a lot of teams have, but we beat them last year as well when they made a prelim, which people forget. And their midfield's similar to Carlton's in that you've got the stars, but we'll try and work harder for longer, and that's where we get the chocolates. That's where I think the game will be won and lost. I think that it depends on who drops off for 10, 15 minutes. But I think you probably got the better midfield on paper, but Marshall almost brings it even just on his own. I think he's that good that he creates another midfielder for us. I think he's had more clearances than the likes of Dangerfield and almost level on Cripps with clearances this year, and he's a ruckman. So phenomenal numbers.
Just on Cripps, Jack Steele is the matchup there, isn't he?
That for sure. I mean, he had it last year, and there was a bit of fire there from Cripps. He didn't really like the attention. I remember when he kicked that goal on Steele and he gave it to him, but then Steele kicked a goal the same game and gave it back to him. It was pretty awesome. But I think Steele's the one. He tagged. Who did he tag? Nat Fyfe last week, but I wouldn't call that a tag. Like, if you saw Nat Fyfe's numbers, he had like 36 and kicked 2 and almost won the game single-handedly for them. So it wasn't a great tag job. But generally, I think Steele's done okay on Cripps. I know last year, I think Cripps had this crazy first quarter and had about 15 disposals and a goal. But after that, we took hold. He kind of died out of the game and it worked for us. I'm hoping, honestly, I wish Steele went more head-to-head and didn't tag as much because I think he uses the ball well and he can accumulate.
Yeah, has he got ball-winning capabilities?
Has Steele got ball-winning capabilities?
Yeah.
For sure. He's done it before. When he, only recently he's had to tag some of the big guns of the league, but when we're playing, the Gold Coast and those sort of teams that don't have that star mid, he can get off the leash and he can have 35 touches and have 10 tackles. He's that sort of player. But I think the tagging role's kind of stunted that. He's too focused on the opponent and less focused on actually getting the ball and trying to hurt the opponent. So I'm interested to see how much he tags and how much he just tries to run off Cripps this week. But Cripps is, It's probably top 5. Would you say he's top 5 in the Brownlow? You'd be confident at this point he'd be top 5 in the Brownlow?
He's got it stitched up, mate. He's already got it stitched up.
Well, he'll finish second. Walt will win the Brownlow, and he'll finish second. That's the top few blues,
Yeah, I'm going to go through some comments here because we like to get through everyone. There's a few from here as well, so I'll just get through everyone.
Yep.
Dan's got an interesting stat here. Carlton have a 1-2 record as the favourite, a 0-6 record as the underdog, but 3-0 when we are currently tied, and that's what you and I the Saints. So interesting one there. John Stanford, a long-time Blues legend supporter. It's a shame that Sam Rowe isn't playing. Yeah, it is a bit of a shame. We love Sam Rowe. Obviously, he gave us a really good service at Carlton. So there's one there.
Couldn't give him the 100th.
Yeah. You haven't played him yet?
No. Neither. I mean, you guys let him hang on the 99, for a while there. But no, we haven't played him at all. It's been all season.
Zach Caldwell, Carlton haven't been relevant for the past 20 years. Actually, mate, we were a kick out of the prelim in 2011. So we've actually won more finals than you lately. So anyway, people seem to forget the 4-year period where we were actually solid. And St Kilda had the G train. How are they going to stop the T train? I like this one.
Mate, there's no T train.
No, not at all. Blake says St Kilda was a force. We were dealing with salary cap and the Mick Malthouse era. Very true. Josh says if the game was at Marvel, I'd say it'd be tough, but the MCG, Carlton will roll them. That's from Josh.
That's actually jumping in there. I disagree there. I hate that our home ground's at Marvel, believe it or not. I think we play the G much better. We're a switching team. We're a kicking team. We like using the space. And we played well at Adelaide Oval. We play well at Optus Stadium and the G. Marvel, it's too tight for us. So there's too much. There's not enough space to lead at the ball. It's a contest every time. The G, there's more space. And I think that that'll benefit us more than what Carlton supporters think. So
interesting. I'll give you one last question, mate. This is from Riley. He agrees with you about the game under the dome being the best game of all time, apart from the Carlton in 99 prelim. He wants to know a little bit about your opinion on the progress of Bailey Rice, because he was obviously eligible to come to Carlton as a father's son, I believe, as well. So tell me a little bit about the Bailey Rice story.
Yeah, honestly, I'm a bit shattered for him. He played a few games last year under Richo and played that kind of back pocket sort of player. And I thought he did a really good job. He doesn't have that. I mean, when you look at Bailey Rice, he doesn't really look like your typical sort of AFL footballer. He looks more like a pub sort of footballer. And that's kind of what I think the perception of the club is that he's not fit enough. He would tend to, play a good quarter and kind of die out of the game. And I think for some reason now at Sandy, he's been playing solely out of the square. Like he's been playing full forward and forward pocket and kicking goals. So that kind of tells me that considering the seniors position, we've got a fairly stocked forward line. That tells me that they don't really know where to fit him into the St Kilda 22. And when I think about it, when you look at our back line, Caulfield, Hunter Clark, those sort of guys coming on and going past him, you've got Mackenzie, Webster to come back, Brandon White, who can't get a game either with him. I'm not sure if he'll be there next year, to be honest. I'm really not sure. I think that I've heard whispers that, he could be one on the table. If anything, we might keep him for one more year and see how he goes with the new coach and if we give him a chance there. But I can't see him fitting into the St Kilda 22 really in the next year, to be honest, with the players coming through. So it's disappointing because I think he's actually quite a good player when I've seen him play. He's got very good skills. So maybe Carlton will take him. Maybe they'll want him in the end.
You never know, mate. I actually do have a few more questions. I've got 3.
Yep, go for it.
First one, who is going to win your best and fairest?
Yep. Rohan Marshall.
Okay, good call. Give me a breakout player for St Kilda next year who will elevate to that next level.
Elevate to that next level. I think he's getting there, but I think Hunter Clark is going to be an absolute freak. Absolute freak. I don't know if you've seen much of him this season, but you
I
see
definitely have, mate. I played Draft Stars, and he has given me plenty of points. I also like Ross to go to that elite A grade level next year. I thought it was going to be this year, but I think next year he will really.
When we get Brad Hill coming in, Caniglio as well, it takes the weight off Ross's shoulders, and he can just kind of run and just enjoy the game.
Dan is adamant that Coggy is going to be a Blue, so I'd be interested to hear the two of you go at it. And finally, give me a prediction for the game.
Jeez, that's always a tough one. I think you guys are going to come out of the blocks. I think you'll start the better, and I think honestly, I can't pick it. It's a tough one. I'm going to go Saints by 10. I'm going to say it's under 2 goals. It's going to be a close one. I think it's going to the lead's going to change a lot in this game. And whoever gets the ball into the 50 cleaner and more frequently will win the game. If you get our defenders one out more than we get our forwards one out with your defenders, you'll win the game. But it's up to the midfields, honestly. So it's going to be interesting.
Awesome. Mate, thank you so much for your time. You have been an absolute pleasure. Very professional. Love your work. For those of you watching, I mean, if you're a Carlton fan, I don't know why you'd be watching St Kilda content, and likewise for St Kilda content for here. But Jake does a really good job on Saints TV, really bringing the content for the fans. And, mate, keep it up. You're doing fantastic things, and looking forward to having a chat next year.
Yeah, hopefully. Let's see how we go after the game on Saturday. Hopefully neither of us are too disappointed. Hopefully it's a good game.
Yep, for sure. Feel free to stick around. I'm just going to put Dan on, and we'll go from there. Thanks, mate.
See you guys. Thanks.
Great.